Hello. So yesterday I had a bit of a disaster. I decided on a day off to take my Eclipson Model A for its maiden flight and take advantage of the good weather we had by also going to the beach and flying it off of the dunes. Now I was a little bit time limited. I only had the morning time. I didn't have much beyond lunchtime, so I thought, okay, that's fine, no problem, the weather's good. But when I turned out that the tide was in, so there was very little beach available. That was my first mistake, is not cancelling it there and then. I thought, fine, no problem, I'll fly it over the water, but then come back and fly along the dune line. No problem at all. Now I did set up the dual rates, I set up the expo, and I thought I would be fairly safe because there was plenty of power on the engine, in the motor, everything was fine. So I took off. It flew out, it was a little bit twitchy, but seemed to be okay. Certainly the rudder wasn't anywhere near as responsive as I wanted it to be, but I thought, okay, no problem, I'll bring it back in, land it and make some adjustments. And that's where things didn't go quite to plan. In fact, they went so far not according to plan that my maiden flight was a total of 43 seconds, and it ended up in a very salty bath for the model. Obviously, because the model was powered, fried all my electronics, so an FRSky SR6 receiver, GPS module, current sensing module, battery, servos, all dead. Motor, dead. So yes, quite a big mistake, but there are a few lessons that we can learn from it. In the meantime, have a look at this video and just see how badly things went wrong. So, sure you'll agree, not a very pretty sight. Poor thing had its back broken in those last couple of pictures, and it was in pretty bad state. In fact, it's a write-off. The electronics are a write-off, the airframe's a write-off. I'd have to print pretty much an entirely new plane for that to work. So I don't think I'm going to be flying a Model A for the foreseeable future. But there are a couple of things there that I did learn. The first is be flexible. If something isn't right, don't take the chance and go anyway. Be flexible. The plane could have survived and I would have been able to fly it if I hadn't thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. Secondly, maidening is terrifying. If you're as inexperienced a pilot as I am, then the maiden flight is pretty much terrifying, and I'm sure it's not much better as life goes on. If I had waited until the tide was out, chances are I would still have crashed. But because the model would have crashed on hard sand, wet sand, but still hard sand, the electronics would have survived. The airframe may still have been a write-off, but the electronics would have survived, saving me some considerable amount of money. It was the fact that it went into the sea, salt water, while powered, that killed them. And that is important because I could have maidened over dry land as well. If I had done that, chances are I may still have crashed. But again, the electronics would have been salvaged, and it would only have been the airframe that suffered, which, to be fair, on a 3D printed plane is probably the least expensive part of it. The final point is, don't try and do too much for a maiden. Don't try and get fancy with lots of switches to set high rates and low rates and things, and make sure that it absolutely can only fail in one way. I think what went wrong is that I had a 3-position switch with high rates and low rates, but nothing in the 3rd position. And I think that as I was trying to recover from a stall, I actually flicked it, I thought, into high rates to give it more elevator control. But I believe I may have switched it past the high rates into the null point, which meant that actually I had no control at all over either my rudder, my elevator, or my ailerons. Obviously, that was pretty catastrophic. So I think one of the things I've learned from this, apart from the don't fly over water on your Maiden, is keep your setup, at least initially, simple. Have it so that if you have your 2 rates, dual rates on a 3-position switch, that whichever one you want to use most is on 2 of the positions, and then the 3rd position is for your other rates. So that means that you can't accidentally overshoot and end up having no control at all, at least in the setup I use on my Tyrannus. So, lessons learnt. It wasn't all of the whole day wasn't a waste. I did get to build my Hobby King Walrus, but that's for another video. In the meantime, in a rather sad way, I'm saying goodbye, and catch you on the next flight.